Welcome to the show, guys. You're tuned to the Two Guys One Octagon. As always, thank you, Ice Orlando, for bringing us in. That was his song, Problem Child, off of Look Mom, I'm a Rapper. We're going to get all his links in the bio below for iTunes and Spotify. But we are coming off UFC 251, and we're also looking ahead to UFC Fight Night Kattar versus Ige on today's episode. I'm your co-host, Jesse Moreno, joined by JL Hines. How you doing, JL?
Man, I'm doing good. Before we kind of get started, guys, do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe. We're putting a lot of work into this, literally coming to you the day after UFC 251 with a breakdown of everything that happened and also looking forward to this midweek fight. Please help us, like and subscribe. It helps us stay motivated. But man, I had a good night last night. A lot of people said it was a boring card, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Lots of, 3 title fights. I think we have 3 deserving champions. We can argue about Volkanovski and Holloway. But I think it was a great night, and I'm looking forward to a couple more fights, fight cards this week.
Yeah, I think it was, we'll dive into UFC 251 and also, like I said, look ahead to Kattar versus Ige. So coming off you at the top, we're going to look back at UFC 251, look back at the 3 biggest fights on the card and also some of the other events that occurred. Then we're going to go head-to-head on UFC Fight Night Kattar versus Ige, breaking down the whole card in 15 minutes. And then me and JL will debate Jimmy Rivera versus Cody Stamann, Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige, give you our picks, give you our predictions. Then we're going to kick off Two Guys One Octagon Newsroom for the second week in a row. We got a special giveaway to talk about, so stay tuned for those details. And then finally closing out with a great debate where JL and I give you our pound-for-pound rankings coming off of UFC 251. So we got a fully loaded show for you. As promised, we're looking back to last night, UFC 251. A lot of things happened that send a ripple effect across the UFC. Let's start right from the top. JL, what was your biggest takeaway from the card?
Dude, let's just go kind of fight by fight. Let's start with Namajunas, because to me, I think it might have been the most impressive win of the night, in my opinion. She did everything that we wanted to see from her that we talked about in our video last week, as far as adjustments that she was going to need to make in order to overcome Andrade. How did you see that fight, Jesse? I mean, that was the biggest takeaway for me is the adjustments that Rose made that we thought she was going to make, but until we actually got into the fight, we didn't know for sure.
I was staying live on Twitter for Rose Namajunas. I was so excited. I didn't think I was going to get that excited for that fight, but when she actually got in there and you saw the footwork, you saw the in and out movement, her staying the perfect distance away from Andrade in 1 round and 2. And then she was hanging on for her life in round 3, which made me feel really uncomfortable and kind of what I thought was going to happen. So I was surprised by that -200 line when it came out. But, the heart that Rose showed in that fight was amazing. And I was on the edge of my seat that whole fight. I think that was my fight of the night as far as the one that had me on the edge of my seat. But it's hard. It's hard not to be happy for Rose Namajunas.
You can see me. I'm just smiling because I was sitting there. I was watching with about 4 other people over at one of our buddies' houses. And everybody there had money on Andrade except for me. And the two, my wife, Kirsten, and another girl there, Keitra, were watching the girls walk out, Namajunas and Andrade, and they're like, JL, Kirsten's like, my wife's like, what did you do? Why did you bet on Namajunas? She's so small. And I was like, just wait until you see her pick Andrade apart. And she did everything she needed to do. I was worried she was going to get caught up in an ugly fight again. And certainly, Andrade got her shots in, but I was very, very happy to see Rose win. And I think hopefully she can parlay this into, a couple victories in a row and maybe even a title shot again and get her back to where in my opinion, she belongs.
Yep. And then this is, I know you've been itching to talk about this, Jay. I'm sure you're pumped for the next fight, the first title fight on the card. Jose Aldo.
Do you have our records? Aren't they? Hit that next button on the slideshow. There we go. That's what I want to see. So, I'm not going to lie, man. I was nervous after round 1 because you talked about Jose Aldo throwing the leg kicks. And he certainly brought that, but I don't know if it was the shots he was taking from Jan or just old age, but Aldo forgot to keep throwing them as the fight progressed. I don't know what else to say about that. And Jesse's going to come at me and say, I hope you feel good about that minus 250 line. But ultimately, the goal is to win money and to bet on the fighter that's going to win, not the fighter that's going to, throw a couple leg kicks like he did in 2016.
So, I mean, JL, sometimes you have to risk money to make money. And I felt good about my read on Aldo. The read of him coming out throwing leg kicks because Peter Yan sits heavy on that leg, and then he came out and did it for the first time since it was 2014 was the last time we saw Aldo throw more than 10 leg kicks in a round, and he did that for this fight. I feel like that was a good read on my end, so I'm going to give myself credit there. Where I was wrong was actually where I thought I would be the most right, was I thought Aldo's experience would take him into rounds 4 and 5 and be able where he could separate himself against Yan, which was actually the complete opposite. I felt Yan came out strong, tagged Aldo. Aldo made the adjustments, and then Yan made the adjustments to Aldo's adjustments. And that's when Yan started to separate. The reason I think he gasped was because he set a new personal record for significant strikes landed in a fight in round 3, and he still had 2 more to go. Yan was just riding this out. He was the younger guy. And we found out something. Yeah, we found out something we didn't know about Yan. And so I'm okay saying I'm wrong. I took plus 185 money, and we learned something about Yan. I'm fine with it.
Yan set a personal best too.
He did.
He set a personal best too.
That's why I said we found out something we didn't know about him.
Great fight and a great win for Yan. I think that we can argue about the validity of that being the title fight. I think Aljo has been very vocal on Twitter about that, and Yan never facing a top 5 fighter or top 5 ranked fighter, but now being the champ. Obviously, Jan's going to have to defend that now. So we're certainly going to see him come up against better competition now. I think there's still a lot to learn about Peter Yan. But I do feel like this validated him being in that title fight and having that opportunity, because he showed, his championship spirit there and did well in the championship round. So
yeah,
whenever
whenever you lose a lineal champion, like we did with Cejudo, there's always going to be questions around it, but in time we'll see. And it's going to be, I thought Aljo was the next step for him, but in the post-fight interview it sounds like Dana White might be leaning Moraes, so we'll see. I think there's only big fights for him, like you said, ahead. But yeah, moving on to Volkanovski versus Holloway.
I want Aljo to get that shot, baby. Sorry, I know we're trying to get the Volk, but I want Aljo to get that shot because I think he presents a unique set of challenges for anybody that fights him, just with his capability on the ground and his ability to take you down. In the length that he has from a striking perspective, that Peter Yan versus Aljo is the fight that I want to see next in that division, hands down. So
I agree. I just think I think Aljo deserves it, and I just think they're looking at it from just a knockout highlights perspective of throwing Moraes in there, and it's just going to be fireworks. But I think Aljo is probably the better fighter between those two right now, and he has the more reputable win over Corey Sandhagen in the way that he did it. But for a shift over to Volkanovski, Holloway, this one, I lost sleep over this one. So I can kick it off, or you can kick it off, JL.
Well, neither one of us bet on Max Holloway, correct?
No, neither of us did.
Did you throw a live bet on Max Holloway?
Nope, I did not.
Really?
No, I did not. All my chips were in on Usman, to be honest with you.
Okay. So I had it. To me, it was obvious Max won the first 2 rounds. Jesse and I were texting during the fight. Felt like Volkanovski may have stolen that 3rd round. I'll admit I have not watched it back. But at the time, felt like Volkanovski may have stolen that 3rd round and then had a slight edge in round 4 and 5. Dana White said that he disagreed with the judges. I think this lines up well for a 3rd fight here between Volkanovski and Holloway. And my biggest takeaway from that, Jesse, is that if this goes to a 3rd fight, I know who my money is going to be on, and it's not going to be on the reigning champ.
Yeah, it's hard for me, man. I was watching that fight, and either if you got to give Max Holloway one round 1 and 1 round 2. 3 and 4, you can flip-flop either way. I find it hard to believe that you would pick Volkanovski in round 3 and round 4. I feel like you would probably lean the other way in one of those, and then I think you could give Volkanovski round 5. For me to believe that there was two people in the room when I was watching the Twitter updates coming up on the side, everyone had Max Holloway up 3-1 going into the fifth. But for there to be two judges in the room that actually thought Volkanovski won the last 3 rounds, I think the percentage on that is ridiculously low. And it really just brings me to a problem with MMA judging. And this is a discussion that we could go down forever. But, you know, I saw people that had it 49-46 for Holloway. And I wouldn't say they're wrong, but I can also see how you could have it 48-47 for Volkanovski, and I wouldn't necessarily say you were wrong either. So that just makes me feel weird about our scoring system, because if that fight took place in the street, I think everyone will walk away and say Holloway won. Do you think I'm wrong there?
Obviously in the first 2 rounds, what Max really did well in the first 2 rounds is he put a stamp on those 2 rounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
He did not do that in the 3rd round. He didn't do it in the 4th, and I think Volkanovski, like you said, clearly won the 5th. If Max is an experienced enough fighter to know that he needed to continue to do that, and ultimately, when you're going up against the champ, in my opinion, the onus is on the challenger to put the stamp on the fight and take that belt away. So do I still feel like it was unjust? I do feel like Holloway won. But I don't know why he got away from finishing the rounds the way that he was doing in the first 2. And round 3 specifically was, that to me, that the biggest toss-up round. And Volkanovski landed a couple of huge shots there with about a minute to go, I believe. And Holloway didn't really respond to that, which is why I think the judges gave round 3 to Volkanovski. So I kind of put that back a little bit on Holloway. He knows better. He obviously showed that he had the capability and the skill set to do it. He made the adjustments from the previous fight, but he didn't put the stamp on that 3rd round and kind of left it open to interpretation. And ultimately, you know, Volkanovski took advantage of that with, you know, a strong finishing round. And I think put himself in a position where you could make the argument that he won.
Yeah. The thing is that this just makes me feel weird is that if Holloway got that takedown in the 5th in the last 10 seconds, he went for a trip takedown but ended up on bottom, I feel like we'd be sitting here saying that it was a like Holloway victory all the way. So it's crazy that fight just came down to a trip in my mind, even with those other rounds considered. But
I think we can admit after the first 2 rounds it was close. First 2 rounds, in my opinion, Holloway blew him out.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the stamps that he put on it. But the last 3 rounds were close. Were very, very close.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know if Holloway gassed, maybe the effects of COVID.
I think he was throwing harder than he normally does. He's normally a volume striker, and we don't normally see Holloway rock people like that off of like 1 strikes like he was doing. So I think maybe he was definitely fighting differently than we normally see him, and he made some adjustments and came out with a really good game plan. And I think that might have fatigued him later in the fight that we normally wouldn't have seen from him. So that's why I think the volume fell off a tad.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of ready for the trilogy, and I don't. Volkanovski's going to be reluctant to do that, but I do think that's the fight to make.
I don't
because I think we'll all tune in. Yeah. So, and then the other, you know, the fight that everybody was looking forward to, aside from people that knew exactly how it was going to play out, was Usman versus Masvidal. Jesse, I'll kind of let you start that since I started with Volkanovski and Holloway.
Okay, I think the fight played out exactly how me and you called it, so kudos to us, but it really wasn't that hard of a fight to call. You give a guy 5 days notice and who's a striker going up against one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. It's not rocket science there. At the same time, I think neither fighter really loses anything on this. Usman might have lost a couple fans here and there because he actually put his skill set on a bigger stage than he's used to. But at the same time, it's not like he went out there and knocked out Jorge Masvidal or beat Jorge Masvidal his own game. I think the Street Jesus rep is going to stay where it's been. And I think Jorge Masvidal's right. He handled it well and lost, complimenting Usman. But if he gets a couple more wins and knocks out a couple more people, baptizes them, he's going to be right back up there and everyone's going to be clamoring for this fight. I think wrongfully so, Usman is kind of turning into a villain champion because he's such a nice guy, but I think people want to see him lose and kind of like the anti-hero in Street Jesus is who people are going to be rooting for to come back and do so.
Yeah, I really feel like that's unfair to Kamaru. He has shown he's the fucking champ, bro. Like he I'll never ever forget the dominance that he had over Tyron Woodley. I'll never forget the fight that he had with Covington, and the heart that he showed in that fight. This was light work for Usman. I don't feel like he really got, obviously there's some danger involved when you've got someone that's throwing with as much power as Masvidal. I think Usman recognized that danger. Obviously didn't want to get into too many exchanges on the feet. And I think did a good job of transitioning to the clinch, and getting him up against the fence when Masvidal was letting loose with those punches, and did a good job with the game plan of wearing Masvidal out, over the 5 rounds. Masvidal, I don't think, if it's not for that fake knee or that fake, was it a punch, right? Fake punch to the belly button that Masvidal is claiming as a shot to the groin, then I think it might get finished, to be honest with you. And it's definitely uglier because Masvidal was able to catch his breath a little bit there and had a couple more opportunities to throw some bombs. But I mean, you got to give credit to Usman. He knew exactly what his opponent was going to do. He knew his skill set was good enough to do what he needed to do and lean on Masvidal for the 25 minutes. Certainly not the most exciting fight, and not what a lot of fans that like Masvidal were tuning in for. But give credit to Kamaru, man. There's got to be somebody that comes out that's able to handle the wrestling, but's also able to throw the bombs that's going to take to beat this guy. Because until we see somebody like that, I think we're in for a long run of Kamaru Usman at the top.
I'm with you there. I don't think there's, and to second off that, I don't think there's anybody in the division right now that presents a bad matchup for him. I think we're going to see a long reign for Usman. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets into that 15, 17, even 20 win streak range. He's at 12 right now. So
the only big bummer on that is that I do think Vegas is we're not gonna see under 200, minus 200 odds on Usman. We probably won't see minus 300 odds on Usman for a while. So there's maybe not going to be an opportunity to make money on him like we have been doing. So I am kind of bummed about that, but I think especially after this fight, and I think maybe the casuals will see it too, and we won't see as much public money coming in on the opponent. But yeah, I guess that's the only thing. We got to keep riding for Usman to be the villain, because I think that's good for us from a betting perspective. If everybody hates him and is just throwing money on whoever he goes against, it's going to be good for us. So,
yeah. So
let's keep advocating.
Yep. So that kind of brought us to this was the first night we're going to be tracking our wins and losses for you, and we're going to be doing so going forward. But that brought a big night home for you, JL. You went 5-2 on the night, 71% win percentage on your bets, and that puts you up 7.2 units.
If I hadn't gone with my heart with Paige, we'd be sitting at 5-1 for the night. But that's okay, man. I still felt like I feel like she was still being disrespected there. I was okay with a half unit play at plus 575 or whatever I got her at. So not the worst decision, but my wife was definitely giving me shit for that one.
Well, that concludes our talk about UFC 251. Now we're going to look forward to UFC Fight Night Kattar versus Ige, and we're going to run through the entire card for you. We're going to kick it off with the bottom 10 fights. So looking at the first fight of the night, Jack Shore versus Aaron Phillips. JL, I'm going to hand it off to you to run through this.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We've seen a lot of line movement already for Jack Shore, starting off at minus 550, already moving to minus 700. When I was looking at this earlier today, it was minus 590. So a lot of money in line movement already just in the last really 12 hours. Jack Shore coming into this 12-0 in his career. He won his UFC debut back in September. And only one fight in his professional career has gone to decision. So this guy is known for being exciting. He had a performance of the night on his first UFC fight back there in September. And I really think he's gonna dominate this and try to get this on the ground. You look at Aaron Phillips now coming in at plus 500. He's getting the call up for his UFC debut in this fight. It's a 5-fight win streak for him. He's absorbing 3.5 almost significant strikes a minute, and he doesn't throw a whole lot back. Kind of the way that I see this is that Shore is obviously the more talented fighter. He's going to be, in my opinion, the more calm and collected fighter. He's going to just throw punches, look to change levels, and bring this to the ground. And it's either going to be a ground and pound KO, in my opinion, or a submission. There's not a lot of money to be made on this one because of the odds. But my pick officially there is Jack Shore.
Yeah, definitely a tough ask for you to come up with a bet at -700. Looking at the next fight, Liana Jojua versus Diana Belvita. That is kind of, for me, watching tape on this one, it really makes me worry about the depth of these women's weight classes. Both Liana and Belvita both have one UFC fight on their records, and neither of them were very impressive. Diana lost a fight to Molly McCann, who's later on this card, Miss Meatball, and then Liana lost a fight to Sarah Moras. Neither of them are really, in my opinion, the most impressive fighters in their weight classes or even in that top 50%, and they both struggled really bad. Liana really looked nervous, really struggled getting herself going, and Diana was kind of in a similar spot against Molly, even was holding the cage to get out of submissions. I don't want to lean anywhere too strong. I think that's kind of indicated by almost no line movement on this. No one really wants to play this fight either. So guys, I think you stay away from this one. Even if it goes a live bet, I think this is a hard stay away for me. Not a lot of film, neither are too impressive. So no play for me.
If you had to make a pick, not a play, but a pick, who would you put? Who would you pick?
I think it's dog or pass. So just because I don't have a lean. So if you had to pick, I would pick Liana.
Okay. Nice, man. I just like to put you to the sword a little bit. So next we got Flash Gordon versus Fishy. So Jared Gordon versus Chris Fishgold. Chris Fishgold's got his teammate Molly McCann fighting on this card. I think one of the things we're seeing in this card, Jesse, is just the international fighters finally having the opportunity, right? We've seen multiple U.S.-based fighters fighting multiple times over the course of COVID, and now that we've moved to Fight Island, we're getting some of the international flavor here. But it also is causing some issues with COVID testing, travel-related situations. So it's just hard to get the fighters to Yas Island, and I think that's why we're seeing some of these weirder fights. This fight right here, a couple guys that, in my opinion, are coming off of not losing streaks per se, but Jared Gordon kind of lost 3 out of the last 4. Chris Fishgold lost 2 out of the last 3. Jared Gordon throws about 7.5 significant strikes per minute, which definitely leads me to believe, and from watching some of the tape, that he's going to be the aggressor. He's also got some confidence. He's a high-level BJJ guy. Because of that, and because of Chris Fishgold's really his only strength is getting this to the ground. He got 8.7 takedowns per 15 minutes. I don't think he's going to want to get it to the ground, but I think Flash Gordon's the better striker. I also think Flash Gordon's probably got the advantage with the jiu-jitsu on the ground. And for that, that alone at it was -143 looking at it earlier. It's rise to -150. I'm actually going to go with a unit play there on Jared Flash Gordon. I feel very confident about that, and I feel like the odds are good. So I'm going with Jared Flash Gordon there.
Yeah, I think the smart money would agree with you there as well. Looking at the next fight of Modessa Bukakas versus Andre McLadies. I feel good about the McLadies. Sorry, Modesta.
No way.
Sorry, Modestas. I know I butchered his name. Either way, though, Modestas is a pretty promising prospect. They found this guy at a Cage Warriors. He's riding a 5-fight win streak. 6-fight win streak, and he's been very impressive. He's got good fundamentals, good kicks, good spinning attacks, good boxing as well. Andreas, on the other hand, he's still impressive in his fights. He's got a spinning KO on there, spinning heel kick KO. But he really hasn't been fighting the most consistent talent. In his last fight, he fought a guy that was 41-37. And then before that, he was in Titan, and he beat a UFC ex-fighter in Fortuna. I think Vegas is kind of siding with the more consistent money here at the -230. And for that reason, I'm going to trail that. Still not going to be a play for me. I think The smart play would be watch Andres come out strong as I expect him to do, have a good first round, and see if you can grab Modestas at minus 150 after round one. That's what I'm going to be looking to do. But right now at minus 230, 69% implied winning percentage, there's not enough tape on him at competing at a UFC level. And same for Andres. He's beating a guy that's 41-37, tells me nothing about your record and nothing about your skill level, because this is a who you beat business. So for me, it's a pass. But if I
41-37.
Yes, for Marci Santos, he KO'd him in the first round. The guy threw a right overhand fell to his back, and then McLady's got on top of him and ground and pound him.
McLady's.
No, it looked like somebody recorded the fight on an iPhone 3. Go on YouTube, watch it.
This is what I'm talking about this card, man. There's a lot of people making a UFC debut. There's not a lot of tape, so this is why you tune in, because we're the ones that are going to go find these YouTube videos that are recorded on iPhone 5s in the middle of Uzbekistan, and we're going to bring you this high-level analysis. So while he might butcher the name, I trust Jesse's opinion on this.
Yeah. So moving to the next fight, a fight that I'm actually really excited is Ricardo Ramos versus Leron Murphy. Ricardo Ramos, I've been high on this guy for a long time. I've actually had him favored in all of his fights, and I've been consistently making plays on him. And he's only done me wrong against Said Nurmagomedov that hit some crazy spinning back kick. Since then, Ricardo Ramos has continued to get better. His game is based in strong fundamentals. And, Vegas is kind of siding with me and taking him as the favorite once again. At the same time, I'm a little hesitant to pull the trigger because Leron Murphy is a great fighter as well. He fought Zubraya Tuhugov and fought him to a draw. Tuhugov is one of the hottest prospects in that 170, 155 range. Obviously at an AKA fight training with Habib on a daily basis. But for me, I'm going to still side with Ramos. Leron Murphy, he's got good submissions, and I think that's what led him to a draw. But I think Ramos is a different level here. I think Ramos makes smart decisions, and I think Ramos is a legit contender. Money is trending in the right direction, so I'm just going to take it now at minus 155. Ramos is going to be my first official play of the night. We're going to go 1 unit on Ramos.
I like it, man. I like it. I'll probably be tailing you there. So now we have another one of those interesting fights where it was hard to find film on this couple of fighters. We've got Kazmat. I actually wrote down the phonetic way to say his last name. Samayev is how you say that, so I don't have to drink, which was the number one reason why, against John Phillips. So we've obviously seen a huge amount of line movement already for Samayev. Minus 245 opening, already at minus 335, which immediately tells you we're probably not going to make a straight up play on Samayev here. A couple things I noticed from watching Samayev, he's an extremely aggressive fighter from out the gates. Fighting on the Brave promotion, he almost always, I watched 3 different fights, he comes out just guns ablazing. So he's looking for the knockout almost immediately. He's only actually had 2 fights that ever went over round 1. So actually the play here, guys, is not going to be on Samayev to win straight up, but it's actually going to be on the fight not going the distance. So I don't have a line on that yet, and I haven't checked in the last 15 minutes. Jesse, if we want to pull that up here, but that's going to be the play. Samayev making a UFC debut. He's well-rounded, but like I said, very aggressive. He was named by SB Nation as one of the top Euro fighters to watch out for here in 2020. So maybe we'll see a highlight reel knockout and get this guy, he'll get his name on the map. He's going up against John Phillips, who called himself the White Mike Tyson, LOL. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, which to my knowledge doesn't really sound that much like Mike Tyson. So it was a 3-fight losing streak to start his UFC career before winning his last fight. I should have said that first. But anyways, White Mike Tyson, I don't really see him having that much of a chance. But at minus 355, not enough value on a UFC debutant. Let's just go with this fight now to go the distance. And if we can, once the lines come out, we'll bet on this to not go over round one, because I think there's with a name like the White Mike Tyson being able to throw some bombs and Samaev's aggressiveness, I think there's a strong chance we just see a first round knockout here, which we didn't see a lot of last night. So I'd love to see that.
So you can get Samaev and wins by KO at plus 535, and you can also get Samaev wins in round one at plus 140.
I don't really like either one of those though, because I don't really trust him that much to win. So I'd rather just bet on both fighters to someone to get knocked out. Would be the move, in my opinion. Someone's getting knocked out in this fight. If this fight's not going the distance, I promise you that. Someone's getting knocked out in this fight.
I'm definitely excited to see Samaev in this fight. But Samaev, interesting fact, is tied with Abdul Razak Al-Hassan, who's in the next fight that we're going to be breaking down, as the most amount of money that's coming in on them. So they both have had a 25% odds change since the odds have came out. So Abdul Razak Al-Hassan is basically the Francis Ngannou of the 175-pound division. If you haven't seen him fight before, please tune in. This guy fights like you play the video game. He sits on haymakers the whole time and tries to knock the next guy out. He's got really good knockouts on his record against Nico Price and then Humasi twice. If you look at the Humasi fight, he had a kind of a questionable one that was saved by Herb Dean, and then they rematched a couple months later, and then Abdul Razak Al-Hassan left no doubt with one of the most brutal uppercuts I have seen. For me, I think Abdul Razak Al-Hassan, his odds are going to keep climbing. They're going to keep going up because Lazaz, to me, this is his UFC debut. He's been fighting in some Arabic promotions overseas. He hasn't fought anyone good. I got a good one for you, JL. When I watched this fight, just so I could have an idea of kind of the talent that he was fighting. But he has a fight on his record where he fought a guy. His last fight, he beat a guy that was 10-9-1. And he also has a guy that he fought on there that was like 3-35 in this other promotion. So he hasn't been fighting the best people. They're setting up Lazaz.
I wonder do you think I could go 3-35 in that promotion? If I had 38 chances, I'm getting at least 3 wins, I feel like.
Yeah,
I feel like the over-under's 1.5. I'm at least getting 2 wins.
I think you at least get 2 wins too. But they're setting up Lazaz to get KO'd here, so they can roll a highlight replay on ESPN, and so you can get some early knockouts for your wins on a Wednesday. So for me, at minus 345, I'm not taking Al-Hassan there. I will take him at minus 190 for Razak Al-Hassan by KO. So I would not.
Okay, I like it.
Very rarely I would take somebody at KO at minus 190, but Razak Al-Hassan, I've already locked up a 1-unit play at minus 190.
I love it, man. I'm just excited to see some knockouts, man, because we didn't have a whole lot of KO, especially not highlight reel KOs last night. So I'm excited to, even if the talent level isn't necessarily there, if we can get a couple knockouts, it's just going to make my Wednesday night feel all right, Let's get us through the week. Let's just have some entertainment. We're not going too heavy on the betting, so the stress won't be there. Just enjoy a couple knockouts. Yep. So the next two here, start off with Molly McCann, a.k.a. Meatball Molly, versus Talia Santos. So this is coming in basically even odds right now, and the line movement's moving it even closer to even odds. Molly McCann, 3 straight wins after losing her first fight in the UFC to Jillian Robinson. In my opinion, in her last fight, going up against Belbita, who Jesse talked about earlier, made just too many mistakes. She was obviously the stronger fighter. She wasn't the better striker, but had more power. So Belbita was respecting that. But a couple times, Molly's just put herself in a situation by being too aggressive, where Belbita was on top, getting some decent groundwork in. And I feel like Talia Santos, who came off the Contender Series, and coming off a fight where she was actually dominated by a more physical fighter, the even odds are justified here. I think it's going to be a very similar fight to what Santos saw there against Barella in her last fight, where she's really struggled with the stronger fighter. But if Molly is making the same amount of mistakes, I'm worried about her potential to bet on as now a plus 115 underdog. Santos is going to be the better striker. She's going to be better on her feet, more technical. She's also got the BJJ background. I don't have a play here. My lean is going to be towards Santos. I just feel like she's going to be able to pick Molly apart. And if Molly's making mistakes, it's not going to be good for her. But I do think this probably goes to decision. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to lean Santos for a pick, but I got no play there. So Ryan Benoit and Tim Elliott, I do have a play here for you guys, but I'm going to tease it a little bit first. We've seen some live movement here as well, and moving it back towards more of an even odds fight. It's moved from 140 over the course of really the last 24 hours to minus 115 for Tim Elliott as the favorite. He's coming in on a 3-loss streak, but he can certainly work it on the ground, and I think that's where Benoit struggles the most. He struggled in his last fight on the ground. He's lost 3 out of his last fights. In his last fight, he got outworked to the decision, and that's really a trend for Ryan Benoit. He gets outworked in rounds 2 and 3 in these 3-round fights, and ends up. I think 2 out of the last 3 fights were split decisions for him, and they were losses, and it's because he's getting outworked. If there's anybody that's going to outwork him, it's going to be Tim Elliott. I think he's justified as a favorite here, and I think if he's able to get him onto the ground, I think Tim Elliott takes this one pretty handily. And I really like the minus 115 odds. So I'm going with a 1-unit play there on Tim Elliott.
Yeah, I kind of saw the same thing that you were seeing in Ryan Benoit, and I like your play on Tim Elliott. Ryan Benoit is just he doesn't put his stamp on rounds there, and I think that's why we've seen those split decisions. And we're really going to see how that Danaher Death Squad training Benoit's been doing can hold up against Tim Elliott. So moving in to my favorite part of the show, we have our head-to-head section, and we're kicking it off with, it's not the co-main, but we think it is the co-main event, right, JL? Is Cody Stamann versus Jimmy Rivera.
It's the people's co-main event.
It is the people's co-main. So we got Cody Stamann coming off of a win against Brian Kelleher in the UFC Apex, and then we also got Jimmy Rivera coming off a long layoff against in his last fight was about 2018 against Peter Yan, who we just saw crowned champion. JL, I'm going to kick it to you for this one. JL, what are your initial thoughts on this fight?
So Corey Stamann coming off an easy win over Brian Kelleher, 2 months ago. The one thing I noticed just watching some of his film, he does tend to start a little bit slow sometimes. And I don't really get that feeling from Jimmy Rivera. Obviously, Jimmy's lost 3 out of his last 4 and all against, good opponents, right? I mean, he lost to Peter Yan, as you mentioned, lost to Aljo, beat John Dodson, and then lost to Marlon Moraes. So certainly nothing to shake a stick at. And I really don't think anything to really criticize Jimmy Rivera over. To me, for both of these guys, this is going to be the difference between kind of staying where they're at and taking that step back up. For Jimmy, he's already had some of these shots. Corey Stamann also fought Aljamain Sterling. But both of these guys kind of need to get back on the front foot and start working their way back up through the division. I think Stamann's got the edge on the ground, but Rivera's takedown defense and strength is so good, I don't know if it's going to get to that point. And it seems pretty even from a striking perspective. So I'll kind of let you kind of give your analysis, and then I'll give you – I do have a play on this. So
yeah, it's kind of we're seeing how good Stamann can be in this fight, right? And sorry, I misspoke. It's a 2019 fight on Jimmy Rivera against Peter Yan. But Jimmy Rivera, he's been – we're starting to see that his career is starting to shape into a journeyman fighter. I was high on him early, but he's going to be that threshold fighter because he can't beat those top guys like Moraes, Aljo, or Peter Yan. But I think he's going to start suppressing the lower people and keeping those being that real gate that needs to be crossed if you're going to break into a title contention. And if Cody Stamann can get by him, it's going to be a big deal here. For me, I get worried whenever I see a fighter take a step up in competition, and Cody Stamann is doing exactly that. I'm still really questioning on where I'm going to lean, and it could flip-flop come fight time, but this is the head-to-head section. I'm going to make a pick. I'm not going to back down here, and I'm going to make a play. I'm going
good,
to...
man. That's good for you. It's a big deal. You don't usually do that. You're the king of no plays, so I'm proud of you.
I like to play, so I'm trying to get that win percentage up, man. I'm trying to be a 71%.
You do have some ground to make up. Yep.
I'm going to lean Cody Stamann. We're going to go, he's going to be my dog of the night. I think he's going to surprise us. I think he's going to be able to keep this up against the cage. His only loss in the UFC is to Aljo. We know how good he is. So Cody Stamann, we're going to do a 1-unit play on Cody Stamann.
I like it. You know why I like it, Jesse? Because it's another opportunity for me to gain ground on you. This fight, in my opinion, I like Jimmy Rivera here, and I like the fact that the money's coming down to that minus 135 range. I just think this fight's going to stay on the feet. I don't know if you got to see, Jimmy Rivera versus Aldo, but Jimmy Rivera turned on Aldo a couple times, got him against the fence, and ended up dominating a couple moments there. And certainly Aljamain Sterling's class outshone Jimmy Rivera over the course of that fight. But I don't really like, I think it was like 97% takedown defense for Jimmy Rivera. I don't really like the idea that Stamann is going to be able to outmuscle him. I think that's kind of going to be a wash. And I do think Jimmy Rivera is the better striker, slightly better striker on the feet. So I feel good in that minus 135 range. I'll feel better. I think this is going to creep down to basically even odds by fight time. But my pick officially will be Jimmy Rivera and a 1-unit play on him. So I'm glad we're going up against each other. And now, that was people's co-main event. Now we got the real main event, which I also think is going to be an interesting fight and kind of a redeeming factor about this card on Wednesday night.
Yeah, this is a firefight, and it's going to be fun to watch. Dan Ige, he's on a surge right now. He's been beating the brakes off everybody, it seems like. He just beat Edson Barbosa, which is a big win for him. And then Calvin Kattar, he's been knocking people out left and right. His only recent losses to Zabit, no shame in that. And he looks like he was coming back later in the fight when Zabit was gassing. I love watching Calvin Kattar fight. He's even got a knockout win against Shane Burgos, which nobody else has been able to do as far as knocking him out. So for me, I think this is, again, a step up for somebody in Dan Ige. Dan Ige's he fought Edson Barbosa, but squeaked that one out. It's pretty controversial, but then he's getting even a more difficult opponent in Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar knocking out Jeremy Stevens, got some other impressive knockouts on his record. I like Calvin Kattar in this fight, and I like him by finish. I'm going to make a play on Calvin Kattar. We're going to go 1 unit on Calvin. We'll see where that line goes as far as Calvin Kattar by finish. I'm going to look that up while you give your breakdown, JL.
I actually agree with you. We're going to be on the same page here for the actual, winner of this fight. I got a 1.5 unit play there on Kattar just because of the way the line's moving. I think even at minus 330, we still like it based off of what Barbosa was able to do to Ige. I do think, even though Ige's 6-fight win streak is impressive, and we like to see that, it's the reason why he's getting a shot at Kattar. I don't think he has the same skill set that Kattar has. I kind of like Kattar to be patient here. Ige's going to be the aggressor, especially in the first round and a half. Kattar's going to be looking for opportunities to counter, looking for opportunities to hit him with a knockout. Kattar takes some shots too and is able to eat them. And doesn't get knocked out. Has taken some pretty tough, had some pretty tough fights and pretty bloodbathy type fights. So I don't like Ige to kind of surprise him there. Ige got knocked down in the first round by Barbosa. I wouldn't be surprised if with Kattar taking a little bit more conservative approach there, is going to be able to drop him. And I'm with you, Jesse. So I got a 1.5 unit play on Calvin Kattar. I've got fight doesn't go the distance. It's a 5-round fight right now, minus 145. So I say take that as soon as you can take it. Fight doesn't go the distance. I don't know if it's moved since I looked at it.
It has. I'm looking at it right now.
Sounds like it has.
It just refreshed my screen, but yeah, I'm gonna up my units. I'm gonna go 2 units on Kattar JL, and then so it's moved to minus 180. Fight doesn't go the distance. So what I actually like is the under 4.5 at minus 160. So if you did take that bet earlier, JL, I think good on you. But I'm gonna put a unit on under 4.5 as well, so you can book me down for that.
All right, so you and I are on the same page on both of those, and our difference is going to be Jimmy Rivera. So that'll let me gain either you're going to gain a little bit of ground, but you're not going to get back to me all the way. So I feel pretty good about this midweek deal. I'm still going to have an advantage no matter what coming out of this midweek.
Sounds good.
And actually, I am logging into my DraftKings app right now to make the play that I need to make on Calvin Kattar. or on this fight not going the distance before I lose that opportunity to do so, because I'll still bet it at minus 200. I mean, I still feel very good about that bet. I don't think this is not going 5 rounds, man. There's no way this if it was 3 rounds, I'd be more hesitant. 5 rounds, no way in hell it makes it 5 rounds.
No. I'm with you there. So that concludes our breakdown of UFC Fight Night Kattar versus Ige. While JL locks that bet, I'll ask you guys to do us a favor, like the video, subscribe, tell us what you think in the comments. In our next section we got coming up, we got a special giveaway that we're going to talk about. We'll break down what you need to do to qualify for that. Hope you like our picks, guys. So moving on to the next part of our show, one of my favorite parts, this is our second time bringing it around. It's the Two Guys One Octagon Newsroom, where we talk about the biggest stories going on for the week so far. So with that being said, JL, I'm going to kick it to you to kick off our first story of the night.
The UFC 4 trailer. So that dropped yesterday. It was actually leaked a little earlier than I think it was intended to leak, although Dana White did a good job of covering that up by Wiley Zhang. She posted on her IG story. So we all saw it. My opinion on it, it doesn't really look like EA Sports is putting a lot of time and energy into making the graphics and gameplay better. I'm sure that it's just nowhere close to what they're doing in purchase volume from Madden or FIFA. Probably their 2 biggest names that they run as a company. And if you are a Madden player or a FIFA player, I think both sets of fans have experienced a lot of frustration around lack of development and lack of innovation in those game titles. So I think we're seeing kind of the same trend happen here with UFC 4. Jesse, what was your thought on what you saw from the trailer? Looks like we're having some boxers in there now. I mean, I'm sure that you and I will both still buy it, but
Yeah, I mean, JL, you and I both being gamers, I'm excited for UFC 4. I wasn't overly impressed with the graphics. I read an article about it, said they improved some of the lighting on some of the fighters. I wonder how much COVID played a role in them being able to get body scans. So I'm going to give them a little leeway there. Hopefully they do a good job on these updates and updating these fighters. Obviously they did a good job on Jorge Masvidal. And that they still have like his 2015 look in there in the UFC 3. I do like the cover though. I like having Israel and Jorge on there. I think it's the perfect amount of swaggy you need to incorporate. And if they throw in soccer kicks in the street mode, I'll be pretty stoked about that. But this is a good. What was that?
Now we're getting hope. Now we're getting hopeful. I don't think we're going to see a lot of innovation from gameplay.
Hey, UFC Undisputed 3 had a pride mode, and there were soccer kicks in that mode. So it's not like it hasn't been done before, but I think this is a perfect part to plug our giveaway. If you like and subscribe to this video and then also tag someone below to follow our page, we're giving away 2 copies of UFC 4. We're going to DM you to get whether it's going to be an Xbox or a PS4. Just make sure you like the video, subscribe, and tag someone below in the chat, and we'll start you going on there. And then if you've already subscribed, again, just comment below. We're not going to do our loyal fans dirty. So that is our thing. We'll also put this out on Twitter as well. So that's a plug as well. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. I'll make sure I get our links in the bio for that. So moving on to the next story. I think this is everyone's favorite story right now and everyone wants to talk about. Mike Perry improves to 2-0 in 2020 by getting his first finish of 2020. Looks like it happened in a bar this time. Jail, what were your initial thoughts when you saw the knockout video show up on your Instagram feed?
Yeah, so I tweeted it out, but my biggest... The best part about the video was the fact that Justin Timberlake and Timberland's song Carry Out, which I don't think I've heard since 2013, was playing in the background for the entirety of the video as the aggression on Mike Perry's face started to evolve from where I thought he was just going to walk out of the bar to just, really unprovoked swinging on an old man. In my opinion, it was worse than the Conor McGregor one. And
you said Conor McGregor, hold my beer or hold my whiskey.
I don't want to get into the words he was saying. That was problematic at best. It's not a good look, man. I think we all knew this guy is, and I don't even want to say it because he might come to my house and find me, but he's not mentally 100% stable, man. I'd like to see, him get some help. It's a bad look for the UFC. And if I'm Dana White, who's really done a good job of, I don't want to say legitimizing, but making the sport more mainstream, this is the kind of stuff that needs to be addressed, because you really just can't have guys going out and getting in bar fights and still be considered, a premier sport. So.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. On a more serious note, I think we're looking at a guy that's kind of fallen apart. I don't know the man. I don't know his wife, but what I can say from an outside viewer is that it looks like ever since that him and his wife split, that he's kind of been a much more loose cannon, and he's falling into this really, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere good. So I'm worried about Mike Perry. I'm a Mike Perry fan. I like watching him fight. I like his personality. JL, when me and you saw him fight in Denver, we were pretty hyped to watch him come out.
Yeah, I was rooting for him.
Yeah, so
I was rooting for him over Cowboy for sure.
So I want to see this go on the right path before something bad happens, or we don't get to see Mike Perry fight in the octagon ever again. So I hope the man gets some help. So moving to the next one, I think the biggest news of the week, as far as the effect that it's going to have on the UFC and its fighters, is UFC and Venom partnering together as their new sponsorship. I like the move personally. I'll tell you guys straight up. I like where it's going. I love their apparel. JL, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I expect nothing less from you, Jesse, as I would imagine that you account for 20 to 25% of their annual sales, Venom, that is, with the amount of apparel that you have there in your house right now, whether it is fighting equipment, shirts, shorts. I think that you're maybe like a top 10 customer for them. But that's probably going to change as they become more mainstream here. I think this is a good move. I don't know. Have you read anything on how this deal differs from Reebok? I think the cool thing is that it's a fight-specific brand, which is really cool to see. I think it just, whenever these big companies get into sports that they don't specialize in, and you and I both saw this being, cross-country and track runners in college, you see a lack of attention to detail and what's really important to that sport. So I expect that to be addressed through partnering with Venom. And I expect good things to come out of this, because they are a fighting brand.
Yeah, I tweeted out once this broke, what were your thoughts? And I got a couple tweets back saying, like, this is the fighter brand. And I completely agree. They have good boxers on their side, and Lomachenko and Jorge Linares. But they also put out really good MMA gear. And I think the Reebok gear, especially early on, it wasn't very aesthetically pleasing. I'm going to be surprised if Venom doesn't put out some good-looking uniforms for these guys. I think they're going to make what is needed, kind of like what you're saying. What I'm more interested to see, though, is how the fighter's going to get compensated off this deal, because there is a lot of unhappiness with how that Reebok deal got done, and it sounds like the fighters weren't very involved in this Venom deal again. So I guess it's TBD to see how we all truly feel about it, but as of right now, I'm excited to see how this unfolds. And as for UFC, the business, I think it's a good deal.
Absolutely. So that'll do it for the newsroom. Moving on, Jesse, to my favorite part of the show, the great debate. Jesse really wanted to do a all-time great or GOAT conversation as a debate. I've been pushing him off on that as much as possible. I feel like it's super, just first takey, maybe. And I'm trying to avoid being like Stephen A. and Skip Bayless for as much as possible. So we have the great debate, and today, instead of doing a GOAT argument, we're going to both do our current top 10 rankings, pound for pound in the UFC. And Jesse, am I starting or are you starting? I can't remember.
I believe I'm starting, but we'll roll with it how it goes. So yeah, we're going to go from 10 up, and we'll see who our number one picks are at the end. And then we're going to be commentating on each other's picks as we go. So this should be fun.
And we gave each other the only criteria was top 10 men and women. And then we did our own thing. So I haven't seen his list. He's seen mine. So I'm curious to see how close we are here. I feel like we're going to be different based on some of the philosophies that I used.
I think so too. So for my number 10 pick, I put Wiley Zhang. I really think as a 115-pound champion, she's coming off of her last two wins are against Jessica Andrade, who I really thought was going to be a long reigning champion, and then she just beat Joanna in probably the best women's fight I've ever seen in my life. Wiley, she has a complete game, and I think we're looking at a champion that's going to be holding on to the strap for a long time. So I got her coming in as number 10 on my list.
And I have Alexander Volkanovski. So I actually had him a little bit higher up before the performance last night. I did dock him a couple spots just because I think the general consensus was that Max Holloway actually won that fight. I think it's easy. It would have been really easy for Max Holloway to break into the top 10 winning, and that's why we kind of waited until after UFC 251 with 3 title fights on the card. But I've got Alexander Volkanovski. I think he does deserve to be there, especially beating one of the best twice now, and whether or not we can legitimize that. But I feel good about having him there at number 10. I think he's got a skill set that still presents a lot of problems for people. And the other reason I got him in there, I think he could go to any weight class and do well. I mean, the guy could go up to 240, go to heavyweight or light heavyweight and compete, in my opinion. So pound for pound, baby. Pound for pound.
He's been there before. So. He's been there before. All right, looking at your number 9.
Justin Gaethje, man, the relative newcomer to this top 10 list. Again, I feel like a guy who deserves it. We're going to see, how he really compares once he gets the chance to go up against Khabib. But his track record speaks for himself. He's got the power. He's developed a little bit more, I don't want to say conservative, but measured approach to his fights. I think we're seeing him grow and mature as a fighter. And for that reason, I put him there in the top 10, give him the number 9 spot.
So, JL, I actually don't have Justin Gaethje in my top 10. And
I know you.
I don't have him in my top 10 because I think the lightweight division is a kind of a 3-headed snake, and it's got Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor, and Khabib, and only slaying one of the. Yep, there you go. There's 3.
There's only 2 that are active fighters.
Where I'm going is he's only killed one of them. He's still got the other ones that he's got to deal with, and I think that it would be hard for me to say he's a top 10 fighter, but that's just me. So my number 9, I like your pick at Volkanovski. I think Volkanovski is again, he's undefeated in the UFC. He's beat Chad Mendes. He's beat Jose Aldo. He's beat Max Holloway twice. It's kind of hard not to make an argument for him belonging up here. So I like Volkanovski at 9. My number 8 is Valentina Shevchenko. I would lean putting her higher if she did officially get a win over Amanda Nunes. I think those are some debatable fights there, but I think Valentina is going to be one of those champions that's going to be here for a long time. You can make an argument for her being higher up on this list. I think she has a skill set that is comparable to many of the men. And I think you can make an argument that she has a better technique than most of the men in the UFC. So I got Valentina Shevchenko coming in at number 8.
I like it. My number 8 is Daniel Cormier. I'm sorry, Daniel. 22-2 all time. But he's kind of met his match with Stipe Miocic. So, and obviously John Jones, at the loss of John Jones and a no contest, you can't really put him too much higher. I've actually knocked him down a little bit just because he's getting a little bit older. So I moved him down to the number 8 spot. I think he can move up for a brief period of time if he beats Stipe. But then he'll obviously retire, I think is what everybody thinks. So I've got him maybe moving up after that fight, but number 8 for right now, solidly in the top 10. Do you have anything to say to that?
I think I guess I have to see how the rest of your list plays out.
And then I put Valentina Shevchenko 1 spot ahead of where you had her at. I'm the clear number 2 best women's fighter, pound for pound right now. I've got her there at number 7. And like you said, man, I think just an all-around talent. I can't wait till the next time we get to see her fight.
Yep. I have to agree with you there. I have Daniel Cormier, similar spot as you.
Okay, so you can't even get mad at me. You can't get mad at me.
I can't get mad at you as your list is right now. To be honest, Jay, I don't remember your list, so I'm actually excited seeing these come up. But I have Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier, again, at light heavyweight, he was pretty unstoppable. He became a double, and only John Jones was his kryptonite. Then he became a double champ at heavyweight, knocking out Stipe. He did fall a little back for me, though, with that loss to Stipe. It was a super competitive back-and-forth fight. I got DC at 7. My number 6 is Izzy Adesanya. Again, 19-0, undefeated in his mixed martial arts career.
Disrespectful.
So we got Izzy. He went on a run, one of the toughest schedules I've seen in a long time, where you have to take on Anderson Silva, Kelvin Gastelum, Robert Whitaker, then Yoel Romero in 4 straight fights. And the fact that he came out of that undefeated was pretty impressive to me. So, again, I think we need to see Izzy kind of extend his winning streak further to move into that top 5. But I think a win over Paulo Costa, especially a knockout over Paulo Costa, is going to catapult him into the top 3.
I'm at a loss, man. A 19-0 fighter who has, like you said, I mean, it's a murderer's row of who he's gone up against in the last 7 fights or so. I feel like you're disrespecting him a little bit there. I've got at my number 6, Francis Ngannou. In my opinion, the actual number 1 contender right now for heavyweight, for the heavyweight division. The only reason I have Stipe ahead of Francis right now is because Stipe is the champ and Stipe has beaten Francis. But the version of Francis that we're seeing as of late, as of the last 2 years, is a different version of Francis Ngannou, and one that I think would be in the words of Kamaru Usman, a problem for anybody in that division. That's why I've got Francis there at 6. That's why I have Stipe there at number 5. Jesse, who do you have at number 5?
Before I get to my number 5, I think the most disrespectful thing on here is that you have Francis, who has never been a champion and got dominated in his championship fight, ahead of Daniel Cormier, who's beat Stipe. Francis is knocking out the bottom part of the top 10 in Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Cain Velasquez, Dos Santos. Those are has-beens. Daniel Cormier is actually winning fights. He's got a history. I think that is disrespectful, JL.
I love Daniel Cormier, don't get me wrong, but if there's one person I think DC is afraid of, it's Francis Ngannou, dude. I think there's a reason why he's taking the Stipe fight and then he's bouncing. At 41 years old, with a family, with a career in broadcasting coming up, I don't think DC wants to fight Francis Ngannou. In fact, I don't think Stipe wants to fight Francis Ngannou. Maybe whoever wins, maybe they should both retire and just let Francis fight, I don't know, Derek Lewis for the belt.
All right, my number 5, I'm there with you. I got Stipe Miocic. You kind of said everything that I needed to say for him. Stipe, I think right now he had the longest win streak at heavyweight, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. So Stipe Miocic at number 5. If he can extend that win streak, he has an opportunity to move up. My number 4, though, is, as you said, the problem, Kamaru Usman. I think Kamaru Usman has just shown his dominance. He's beat Tyron Woodley. He's beat Colby Covington. He's beat Jorge Masvidal. It's crazy, and he's on a 12-fight win streak in the UFC with a ton of names in there, including Leon Edwards. It's crazy to think that he's probably 2 fights away already from clearing out that division, and I think he has the potential to be champion for a very, very long time. So Kamaru Usman, I got him at number 4.
All right. I have Israel Adesanya at number 4, and go ahead and throw Kamaru up there at number 3. There's a reason why I've got them back to back. These guys to be completely honest with you, these are my 2 favorite fighters in the UFC right now. These are the guys that I'm going to ride for through and through. I love watching both of them fight. I don't care what you guys say about Kamaru Usman. I am a fan. The reason I have Kamaru 1 spot ahead of Israel is that, no offense to Israel, he's obviously 19-0. Like I said, has gone through a murderer's row. I just think that there are more ways to potentially beat Israel than there are to beat Kamaru Usman. I just see Kamaru Usman as a guy who's got it dialed in, has the formula. Israel does too, but Israel can get caught. Israel could get in a situation when he fights Paulo Costa that he's going to fight somebody that has the power to knock him out. Kamaru Usman has fought guys that have the power to knock him out and has just done nothing but put him on the ground and make him cry for 25 minutes. So that's why I've got Kamaru Usman there at number 3. Got the potential to work his way up there to number one, especially if he clears out that highly competitive division.
I agree with you. I think those are all good points there. My number 3 is Amanda Nunes, the greatest female fighter of all time. Not only is she a double champion right now, but she's beat Holly Holm, Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, Valentina Shevchenko. Pretty much any woman that's held gold at 135, she's beat her. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Chris Cyborg as well. She knocked her out in under a minute. Amanda Nunes, undeniable, one of the greatest fighters in the world. And I don't see anyone beating her anytime soon. So she's my number 3. Number 2, I got Khabib Nurmagomedov. Again, undefeated in MMA. I believe he's 27-0, and if not, he's 28-0. Probably one of the most unstoppable forces. There's not many fighters, or let alone many athletes in their respective sports that strike fear across their sport. And Khabib Nurmagomedov is one of those fighters. Nobody wants to go on the ground with him. He's kind of got a cheat code down there. And Khabib Nurmagomedov is coming in at number 2 on my list.
Yeah, I'll talk about Khabib here in a second, but my number 2 is going to be Amanda Nunes, and it's a life. I don't want to say it's not a lifetime achievement award. She very much deserves this spot, in my opinion. Just the dominant force, and until somebody dethrones her, she's going to sit there in that number 1 or number 2 range. Because and very much like Kamaru, I don't see that happening anytime soon. And I'll go ahead and get to my number 1 since you already made a lot of the points on Amanda. My number 1
Hold on. What I'm seeing is you're setting yourself up. If you say Khabib, then John Jones isn't in here. And if you say John Jones, then Khabib isn't in here. So I think you have some explaining to do.
Yeah, no, John Jones is retired, bro. I don't know if you noticed with my list, but I very much took the Dana White approach. You say you're retired, you're out. You got to work your way back into the top 10, in my opinion. You don't just get to willy-nilly choose when you're retired and not retired. There have to be consequences for those decisions. And in that way, currently as it sits right now, I have Khabib at number 1 for a lot of the same reasons that I have Kamaru Usman there at number 3. There's just not a lot of ways to beat Khabib. And until somebody does it, I will not believe that he's beatable until it's done. Whereas most of the other fighters on this list, you know what their weaknesses are, and you can say that they are beatable. It's really tough to say that for Khabib, and that's why I've got him at number 1, because you can't really articulate a way to beat him. You know what I mean? Like, even high level UFC commentators have trouble articulating a game plan to beat Khabib. So that's why I've got him there at number 1.
Fair enough. I appreciate your Dana White approach. I have John Jones at number 1 for me. I have John Jones because he is the best fighter I've ever seen, and I can't tell you how much that hurts to say. He has the best. He's got some of the best fight IQ. He's got some of the best defense. He has the most diverse game out of everybody on this list. He could beat you anywhere. The fight goes, man, whether he has to out-wrestle you, outstrike you, submit you. And there's been no one in his MMA career, unless you're Matt Hamill, and you can take an elbow on the ground, that can beat John Jones. Sorry, I'm not giving credit to Matt. I'm giving credit to Mario Yamasaki for that stoppage. So Mario Yamasaki is the only one that's beat John Jones. Other than that, John Jones.
Who?
Mario Yamasaki. If you don't know much about Mario Yamasaki, oh, actually, it's Steve Mazzagatti. I'm sorry, Mario. Steve Mazzagatti is the worst ref of all time. If you want to look up something funny, just type in Dana White, Steve Mazzagatti. But he's the only one to beat John Jones. Other than that, he's beat everyone from DC. I think moving up to heavyweight, if he wants to be in contention for the greatest fighter of all time, he's got to beat heavyweight champion as well. And I think he's got potential to do it. I think he could be the LeBron James of our sport as far as his talent is concerned. So I got John Jones at number 1. I saw you wincing your eyes there when I said he could be the LeBron James of our sport.
That's just because when you hear LeBron James, you think of a good person.
Yeah,
as much as we all like to cheer against like the greats, right? We like to cheer against LeBron James to get beat sometimes, unless he's going up against the Warriors with nobody on his team. But it's actually really tough to like find a reason to not like LeBron James, I guess, unless you're from Cleveland. And even still, he went back and won you a championship. So I don't know how you could dislike him. It just is a tough comparison. I know what you're trying to get at. Just a tough like connection to make in my mind. I will say this. I'll leave you with this. Yes, I took the Dana White approach, but I'm also better than Dana White because I didn't keep John Jones on the pound for pound rankings when he retired, because I don't have a special connection or special place in my heart for John Jones like Dana White does. And that's going to be the PG-13 way of saying that instead of getting further down that line.
Got you. Well, that's the episode for us, guys. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, tell us what you think in the chat. And again, don't forget to submit yourself for that competition for the EA Sports UFC 4 video game. Like the video, tag someone, and subscribe to our channel. So thank you so much, guys. ISO Lando, take us home. That's another episode. See you for the next fight card.
Like it's all good. Problem child, mama child, look. Karma coming back around. Out of town, flexing for your niggas when your girl around. What's that sound? Gunshots, they looking up, I'm slowing down. They throwing up, I'm throwing down.